All right, darling, we are live, and I'm just going to do one thing here. Hello, everybody. It's so lovely to be doing this Facebook Live. And this has been a kind of a dream of mine. So let me. Okay. So let's do this. I am going there's 4 people watching us, which is lovely.
Great.
If anybody is coming on, please say hello. We'd love to know who's out there. Um, it would be wonderful to see. Hey, Kaylee, good to see you. All right. So I'm going to do one thing here. Okay. All right,
Sure.
everybody. Well, happy Sunday. I want to introduce the most important man in my life. And um, wow, I think, for me, the most amazing man I've ever met in my
Thank you.
life. So
Thank you.
you are welcome, honey. And I'm going to do all kinds of embarrassing this morning when it comes to Benjamin. So, honey, just hold tight.
Okay.
You know how much I love you. So it's a little hard for me to hold back. Um, so welcome to everybody who's joining us. The reason why we're doing this new Facebook Live, this weekly Facebook Live every Sunday. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you all. Hi, Dallin and Carolyn and Cynthia and
Oh,
Minerva.
so terrific.
Hey, Minerva. Anna, I love your new red hair. And Sharon and Lisa and Tyra. Oh, this is so exciting. So I wanted to explain first how this came about. Well, first of all, I would have given anything to have done this a lot longer ago. And I know Benjamin probably would have said yes if I had asked him. But one of the things that's happened recently is that because of COVID, my sweet husband has been helping me in my program. So I teach hi, Jill. Hey, Barry. I teach a 12-week course for women, for single professional women who have everything else except love. I show them how to cross meet my soulmate off their to do lists forever. And my beautiful husband was able to help me out during COVID. So he's been coming on all of our Q&A calls. So every week in this course, we have 2 live Q&A calls with the women who are enrolled in the course at the time. And Benjamin has been a huge help. So he has gotten very good at being in front of the camera. Oh, he's way better than he used to be. We'll put it that way. And he's a lot more comfortable. I know he'll get more and more comfortable with the Facebook
Great.
Lives as well. So the reason we decided to do this is that we've started working on my book again now that we're settled in our new New Mexico home. And we're able to do that every Sunday morning. We're getting up and we're working on my book. But one of the things that I felt was such a tragedy was that we were having these beautiful, rich, deep conversations. And I just kept thinking, wow, if women could hear this, if they could hear what I'm hearing, if they could hear the wisdom that pours out of this
Thank you.
man and from his heart. And so I just enrolled a brand new client. And I have to say that she gave me the most beautiful title for this podcast or for this Facebook Live. We're turning it also into a podcast. And she said, I said, you're going to really hear inside the male mind. And she said, no, you're going to hear inside the right male mind.
Wow.
So that just was like, when you hit crystal and you hear that sound, that's what that was for me. So here we are. I want to introduce my amazing husband, Benjamin Shield.
Hi. I
you, you have 29 viewers right now.
Terrific. Well, I think I may know most of you.
Yeah, many. And Natalie, you keep cycling, girl. It's good to see you here. Hi, Siham and everybody. All right. So today we something just came up when we were talking last Sunday, babe,
Mhm.
and it was a stunner for me when you said this. We were chatting about male sexuality,
Mhm.
which we're going to dive deeper. We're going to take a deeper dive into that in just a moment. But before I even go further, I just want to say before we do that,
Mhm.
that Benjamin is my husband, but I also want to share that this man is one of the most brilliant, devoted, respected, hands-on healers in a way. Not
Oh,
not a Reiki person, but Benjamin is was originally trained as a rolfer,
uh,
and he works just with his hands, managing pain. And how would you describe it, babe?
well, I the goal is really creating choice, ease, comfort, but most of all, choice. How we express ourselves physically, how we express ourselves emotionally, and how we can receive emotions and process them. So I think that with time and compensation and rotation and injury and that pages get torn out of our dictionary, of what we can do and defines what we can't do. So it's really restoring that amount of choice um, into one's life. My specialization is working with infants, newborn to age 2, and that's what I've taught for almost 30 years. I've been in practice for 40 years now,
Mhm.
and
But,
yeah,
and just to put this into
yeah.
practical terms, Benjamin will help with scoliosis, TMJ,
Well, dentistry being my background, TMJ, but I've specialized in so many things over the years that I'm very proud to be
headaches,
headaches.
yeah, migraines, headaches, and Benjamin is often the person that people, even, physicians and chiropractors, I mean, he's the last stop on the block when nobody else can figure it out. Benjamin is usually the person they just say, go see Benjamin
Uh,
Shield. And he's going to, uh, 99 times out of 100, he's going to know exactly what's going on with someone's physical form, their physical body. And he's the person, if he can't get to it, he'll tell you what's
mhm,
really
yeah.
happening. But he helps people manage long-term pain, but through physical manipulation,
Mhm.
visceral manipulation, and
Like cranial sacral therapy.
cranial sacral
Uh-huh.
therapy. Yeah. Just
Good.
trying to put it in
Uh-huh.
practical
Good.
terms.
Thank you.
All right. So let's do this. We're going to talk about sex, and we're going to start with something that you said when we were talking last week, last Sunday, that just bowled me over. And it kind of broke my heart when I heard you say this. We were talking, and I brought up the Me Too movement and people like Nasser and Jeffrey Epstein and all, these sexual predators that we're hearing so much about in the news now. And you said to me, if I were single and
Mhm.
in the dating world, I would wait for a woman to
Mhm.
initiate sex.
Right. I think that men have become so sensitized to being inappropriate or to forcing themselves on a woman or being blamed for being too forward that we hold back. We're reserved. And it's deadening, because it's not even about crossing a line. There's no line. It if there were a line, we could figure it out. We
Right.
can go up to here, but not past there. But it is so different from person to person, people to people, and moment to moment
Wow.
that what might be appropriate on one day may not be appropriate on another day. And so men begin to pull back on their masculinity. I think women, in turn, my sense is that they're questioning, how masculine this man really is, because he's not moving forward. And they begin to lose respect. The man begins to feel some shame. He begins to withdraw. And that spark, that spontaneity, that aliveness, that that joy of intimacy begins to recede.
Mhm.
Uh, Not only in long-term relationships, but even in dating relationships.
Yeah. And good men and women get caught in that, right? Like we start to have fears, women have fears about men, and we're carrying that into our dates, and it's coloring how we show up and how we're able to be open with you. What's
Mhm.
the impact of that on you when we do that?
Well, I think most of all, it's confusing.
Mhm.
We just don't know how to be. We want to be men. We want to, we've grown up with the archetypes of men in movies being masculine and spontaneous and um, just taking the woman and bending her over uh, backward and kissing her and um, uh, surrendering to the moment. Now it's asking permission.
Signing a consent form. Yeah, could you please sign on the dotted line that I can bend you over and rip your bodice, right? Uh-huh.
Right. Last Sunday we stayed in. We saw the movie The English Patient, which I think is from the 1980s, and there was a scene where it was so beautiful, so spontaneous, so loving, and I just made the comment to Lisa. I hope he asked for permission first.
Wow.
So we're not here to say that there's a right answer. We're here to say that this is a time, particularly with the rightly so, the Me Too movement, that sexuality is confusing for both genders. You know?
Yeah, so babe, what can women do? Because we're at such a loss,
Mhm.
right? In this moment in time, women are stronger, we're more independent than we've ever been, and we pride ourselves in all of those things. And at the same time, we want men who are assertive and who are going to pursue us, not the love bombers, but we want to be pursued. We want a man to be romantic with us. And it's like we're between, as you say, a rock and a soft place.
Right.
you know, we're real, both sexes are struggling, but as women, we can't find real men. What do we do? How do we help you? How do we bridge this gap or cross this chasm? Because it's hurting both sexes.
Well, in answer to your question, that it may depend on what age group these people are in. In an older age group, I'll say older, like after age 50,
Hmm.
um, you know, men's sexuality may begin to decline, maybe not in their mind, but in their body. I
Hmm.
mean, they may have a tremendous libido and tremendous drive, but their body, maybe after age 55, certainly into the 60s and beyond, that the body doesn't respond. There's a loss of sensitivity. Um, uh, Things change.
Yeah, just as a woman's breasts become often less sensitive,
Yeah,
right? And even vaginally, intervaginally. So it's the same for men.
right. And I think the most important thing for a man to feel sexual at this stage in his life is to feel respected.
Mhm.
And it takes respect, it takes understanding, it takes patience, it takes even a little bit of playfulness
Mhm.
and spontaneity. And because it's so easy for a man, even in his 20s,
Mhm.
um, if he loses an erection or doesn't get an erection, sometimes it just takes that one time where he feels so much shame
Right.
and emasculated that he will not want to recapitulate that. He will not want to have sex again with this person or maybe ever. Um,
And you shared, we were talking about, because I had asked you what that would be like for a man who would lose an erection. Here's this gorgeous woman, this naked woman, this
Mhm.
sexual opportunity. And at such a young age, to
Mm.
have a sexual mishap, for some men, that can scar them for their entire sexual lives.
Oh, absolutely. That sense of shame, I I think there are very few things that could happen to a man that can create more shame. And what how the man will respond is he wouldn't want to feel that sense again. So he'd rather just withdraw. And
Wow.
yeah.
And what can a woman do? What could a woman do? Because sometimes once that happens, the shame is so deep that it almost feels like there's nothing we can do. Even if a couple tries again because of the shame, it's going to put that guy right back in the same place. What can a woman do?
I think that a man, a younger man, a sexually active man, I think the goal is really satisfying the woman, having that orgasm or orgasms, and he feels great because of what he can give to her. And there's a point of what a woman can give to a man. So a man that feels shame, um, it can be the woman could express and genuinely feel satisfaction of of intimacy, which doesn't have to be intercourse, and that everything is built on trust and safety. And when a man feels more safe and trust in himself and in the sexual act, then things begin to change, and whatever they will look like, it will only improve and be satisfying for both partners.
Right. But, once that happens, like in a relationship, a lot of times a man won't even talk about it.
No, I mean, and I think when something happens for a woman, she has a group of friends, and that she will, you know, there will be a supportive circle around her. For a man, it will be so rare that a man will ever talk about any sexual dysfunction, um, to it with another man.
Yeah, it's rare.
Rare.
Yeah.
And so he's alone. And, um, uh, the only way that he can really deal with it is to withdraw. And it's not just withdrawing from sex, it's withdrawing from the relationship, being more distant, um, uh, feeling shame throughout the relationship because of this one aspect of the relationship.
Wow. And so just one mishap like that can damage not just a relationship, then, he doesn't just have one bad sexual experience, it'll sabotage the entire relationship and maybe relationships, for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
I mean, it
And,
really
mhm.
can.
And I think in dating, some men who have experienced that may feel the same excitement for conquest and courtship, uh, in dating, but when things start to become, um, more intimate and leading to intercourse, that he may break off the relationship. And some people might define this as avoidant, but it's not true avoidant behavior. It's fear, it's shame, it's loss of respect for himself as a man. So,
Oh
you
my
know,
God.
so and women can be left absolutely confused because things are going great. I mean, they start out great. They really like each other. They really feel warmth and tenderness and excitement for each other. And then when it gets to that point, the man is in fear of losing it all, by not proving that he's a real man, and just retract.
And then it can become, oh, so they could pull away at that point.
Right. And it's not
Are
really,
you serious?
yeah, and it's not it's not true avoidant behavior. It's just shame and fear and loss of self-respect.
So you really you're sure, like there are men, like handsome, attractive men, what lovely men who can go into a relationship and pursue a woman and woo her and all, and then it can get to the point where the sex comes up or it's
Mhm.
time to get sexual, and his fear of not being able to perform, of reliving that shameful experience again,
Mhm.
will cause him to just pull away and go to the next one.
Yeah, he may be
Whoa.
really, really good at courtship, uh, and really get into it. And then when he pulls away, it could be so confusing for the woman and so hurtful for the man because the man knows why he pulls away, and he knows that if it were different, it could be a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful relationship. So, you know, as a man, one way that I think can help this is for the man to be a bit honest, saying, look, I'm in my 60s or I'm in my 50s, or look, I love sex. And sometimes when I really like someone, it's hard to perform at first and it may take some time, you know, and that understanding. And then for the woman to say, look, I completely understand whatever it looks like. I just want to be with you. I just
Mhm.
want to lay next to you. I just want to, you know, uh, uh, you know, be together.
And it takes maturity. It just takes two people who are open hearted and mature and realistic about things, right? Like it's wonderful if you hear of a woman in her 60s or a man in his, 60s who really are
Mhm.
very are virile,
And they
right?
they exist,
And they
absolutely.
exist. Those people are out there. But there's also um, the majority, I would say, of human beings where our libidos drop, our hormone levels go down. That even happens in a long term relationship where a couple who was very hot and, sexual in the very beginning, as the relationship goes
Mhm.
on, that also starts to wane. But it's being realistic and honest and loving. um, I will share that for both of us, we're at a point in our stage, we're so deeply,
Uh,
passionately,
uh,
wildly in love. And we are both at a place where, making time for intimacy is
mhm.
it's a priority for us. But is nature helping us out in that area? Damn it, no.
Right. I think with age
Mhm,
that um, it's so important to make time, even if we're not thinking about it ahead of time,
mhm.
and really like uh, I can't wait to rip your clothes off. But once we begin, it's like, gosh, we
Right.
should do this more often.
When we feel like we're like
uh,
teenagers,
yeah.
and in some ways, it really is true that our intimacy is even better now.
Mm,
It really is.
yeah.
I mean, it may not be, the wild off, just
Mm,
self abandonment and
mm,
whatever, but the love and the connection and the richness
mm.
of this relationship and everything that comes to bear on,
Right.
it's really profound.
Right. And in addition to being about the act of sex, even as much or more, it's about connection,
Mhm.
intimacy, uh,
Play.
play, fun, humor. Uh,
And
you know,
sometimes it's just, wow, we still have it.
exactly.
It's like, wow, look at us. We're still going for it,
uh-huh.
right?
Mm.
At our stage in life,
Yeah. I'm
and
I'm 68. You'll be
I'll be
60.
60 in a few
Yeah.
months. So it's uh it's really lovely to know that we can still have this part of our life, you know, alive, and that we
Mm.
make time for it. the one thing that I think is so important for people who are listening in is to really understand that part of why, you know, a large part of why we're able to do this together as we age and is because we both make it so safe for one
Yeah.
another. You tell me all the time how beautiful I
Mm.
am and how attracted you are to me, and you show me by wanting to spend time with me. And
And you in turn reflect my masculinity back to me, which is, I think, that and respect are the two most erotic things that could happen to a man. Having his masculinity mirrored back to him and feeling that the woman respects him.
and babe, when you say mirroring a man's masculinity back to him, what does that mean for people who don't understand?
Well, it means like, wow, look at those muscles. Look, wow, look at that bicep, or I love how you take care of me, or I love how you stand up, um, and or I love how you bring in the income, for the family. Um, all the things that are quintessentially male.
You're such a great father.
Yeah, all of
Yeah.
those things quintessentially male, if they're mirrored back, because so often they're not.
Right. So telling a man, like pointing out the ways that you see a man being masculine
Yeah.
and praising him for that, and also being available for sex and
Mm.
available for uh, the things that a man needs a woman to be there for,
Yeah.
right?
And I think in turn, what a man can give a woman, I think that may be very simplistic, but there are three things that make a relationship great. uh, for the woman, it's feeling cherished and adored, beyond her wildest dreams, and also feeling protected,
Hmm.
physically, emotionally, spiritually. Uh, and for a man, it's having his masculinity mirrored back to him. And of course, there's so many different elements, but I think if those three key elements are there in a relationship, that relationship is not only going to last, but it's going to thrive.
Right. And the single most important thing a man needs to feel is respected.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
needs to feel that a woman respects him,
yeah,
who he is, not just generalized respect, but I see who you are and I really respect that man.
yeah. And I think one important thing to note is that shame can be healed. Shame can be healed with patience, connection, understanding, playfulness, humor, uh, intimacy. All of these things can begin to heal what a man, what a man might feel shame about.
It's really interesting hearing you say that because, wow, that's what a man needs from a woman is for us that is what we need to open up and be vulnerable to men and receptive to men, but men need to be receptive to us and to what we have to offer, which is the ability, like you said, to give you the love and the patience and to help you heal.
Yeah. And it's not even about getting an erection or keeping an erection. With with time, even in a younger relationship, relationship with younger people, that you know once a couple settles into a relationship, it's not like the courtship, there where there's this, you know excitement, particularly even before uh, sex happens, but that wonderful, wonderful excitement. And once we're in a relationship, even in our 20s, that sex becomes different. It's not about conquest. It's not about um, um, that 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 courtship.
Hmm.
Um, it's about being in a partnership. Having that bell-shaped jar over the two of you, and where there's nothing else in the world that exists.
Uh-huh. I just got something big that I never had really understood before. Um, what often happens is we try to help you heal. We do. We come into a relationship and we see the wounds that you're carrying. We see the shame, right? The wounding from your relationships with other women. And sometimes we want to be the woman for you that those other women weren't,
Ah,
right? We want to be the loving, tender,
ah,
caring, feminine woman, safe woman. And some men are open to receiving that
yeah.
and they can heal like you did,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I was loving and accepting and
Mhm.
tender, and I was and really held you in so much esteem, and it allowed you to trust me and let go. I mean, I healed you. I mean, I helped you heal. Just
Yeah. I mean, everyone goes into relationships with wounds. And if we didn't have wounds, we'd be in those past relationships still. so, so there's a reason why we've broken up with that one, two, three, or 17 different relationships going into, the relationship we're in now or about to go into.
Yeah, and the point I'm getting to is, and this is very important for all the people, the women who are listening. If a man is not, if you are showing up as a loving, open-hearted, accepting woman who's creating safety and trust with trying to create safety and trust for a man, sexually and otherwise, to help him feel safe enough to open up to you. If he isn't able to do that, it's not your guy.
Yeah.
You got to go because you can offer this, you can offer it to another person, but they have to be open to receiving it.
Mhm. Right.
And that's where so many of us get caught and hurt in the wrong
Mhm.
relationships is trying to uh, heal another person instead of just offering, this is who I am, this is what I can give you,
Mhm.
and then seeing if that other person is at a point where they can say, wow, you're everything I've been looking for.
Yeah. And yes. And for a man, there are cycles in a man's life, even beyond the cycles of age. Um, or it's not even a cycle, the continuation of age. But a man who is having difficulty at work, um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, during the period of COVID, some people lost their jobs or their income dramatically dropped. And it's very difficult to separate a man from his work. Um, as men, we identify with what we do. And when that is compromised, it it goes into relate the relationship.
And it
So
affects him sexually.
absolutely. So for the woman to understand that, I think it's easy for a woman to take it personally.
Right.
Wow, you don't find me attractive anymore. You don't think I put on, 15 pounds since we got married, and you're going to start looking at other women, or you no longer want me. It's not about that. And I don't think it's ever about that. It's about how a man feels with himself, not how a man looks at his partner. And so during those times, for a man to know that a woman doesn't question his love for her, his caring, the connection, but that it's a difficult time, and the woman, the partner, uh, can find ways of intimacy where the man doesn't feel threatened or
Mm-hmm.
shame during that period of time until he gets back on his feet.
And also giving him space to understand that that's what's going on, and if he's not feeling up to things or whatever, making that okay,
Yeah.
and making it okay, because there are seasons in relationships.
Mm.
I think one of the things well, the thing that held up, that made it so easy for us during this time where you haven't been working
Right.
and you are a man who is wildly passionate about his work.
Right.
I mean,
And inseparable from my,
inseparable.
yeah.
And you just pivoted and found the ways in which you could be very useful as you could be
Mhm.
during this time. And we had enough safety and trust in our relationship that I think our love for each other and our desire to just do, to show up for each other. We have this deep desire to be there for each other, no matter what that looks like.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what saved us during this time, like from spiraling into something awful.
Hmm. Which it never did.
No, never.
Yeah.
Not at all. But it could so easily have. And I think for many couples, it did.
Mm. Yeah.
And we, because of our love, people talk about love and what it is. And I mean, the love that we have for each other is so strong
Mm.
that, yeah, we just catch each other. We catch each other every time before we fall. But I think the beautiful thing, the hard thing and the theme of this particular talk, to bring it back, is that all of these things that go on in the world, the Me Too movements
Mhm.
and these sexual predators and all these things that
Mhm.
are so prevalent in the news,
Mm.
there's an effect, a real direct effect on good men.
Right. I mean, sometimes we're concerned that the night before can be the dream, and the morning after can be the nightmare. That we could be accused of taking advantage, particularly if there was alcohol involved or whatever it may have been, um, and even a court case,
Yeah.
and things that could come back to haunt him years later. An act of spontaneity, what he thinks is playfulness. Um, may not have been felt, you know, reciprocally.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I want to share something really fascinating about this. On NPR, I don't remember what show, but they were talking about sabotage, people who are getting their identities sabotaged online. And there was a man who his whole identity was just being ripped apart by a person. He didn't know who it was. He couldn't figure it out. There was nobody he could trace this to. And they finally somehow traced it back. He had to hire people to figure this out. It was a jilted woman from his past that was sabotaging this man's entire reputation and had harbored all this anger towards him and was taking it out on him. And I know that's well, it's an extreme example, but it's not, when we're hearing all of these horrible stories, and they're true, what these people have done. I don't know what he did to her, but I don't think it was, I think it was an angry, like, ex-girlfriend from college or something. And yeah, I mean, a person's anger can get magnified over time and twisted, and especially with love and obsession, it's not unheard of for stuff like that to fall on a man.
yeah, yeah,
And it's just magnified now with everything that's going on, because surely we have a very dear friend of ours whose husband um, did, there was something happened, but this woman, said that he came on to her or something. And then without even hearing
right.
his explanation,
Mhm.
without even hearing his side of the story, she had been somebody who had been pursuing him for a long time on social media. So there was a lot more to the story than this. And the woman wound up just sabotaging him, and his whole career is gone now. And there were two sides to this story, and there was only the one incident. It's not like 20 other women came forward and supported her case. There was one woman, and so, it doesn't always mean that it's not true, but yeah. Yeah, so it can happen to anybody.
So, what a man needs is, I think that, and again, there's no formula. There's no line. Um, there's no rule book. Um, and sometimes I wish it existed, and other times I'm glad it doesn't. Um, but it's establishing trust and safety before we have intimacy. I think it goes back to that. Knowing the person
Waiting, taking some time,
exactly, even
not being impulsive and just jumping in.
even becoming friends first, as we did.
Well, not even, but definitely becoming friends
Yeah,
first.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
doing everything you can in that early stage to get to know somebody.
yeah. And the more trust and safety there is, the larger container exists of playfulness, of spontaneity, of passion, of making a mistake.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and so, yeah, establishing that trust and safety and establishing that larger container that can contain all the things that if the container were still small and people didn't really know each other and there were projections and there were um, projections broken and misunderstandings, um, that's where things fall outside the container, and that's where the danger can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Any, does anyone have any questions? I'm very curious to hear what all of you have to say. Tyra had written here, she said, when I first started dating John, he used to ask permission to kiss me or do anything else. He was hyper aware of what is currently occurring in society in relation to the Me Too movement. Yeah, absolutely, Tyra. I think that's so smart. I think it just even tells me more about who John is. Like that says to me that is a conscious, awake, aware man. And that's the kind of guy we should be looking for right now are men, who express their concern, who are respectful of our boundaries. That's brilliant. Brilliant. Anybody else? Are there any other questions or comments about anything that Benjamin said? Shanice, you can listen to the replay. Natalie said, today it must be difficult to be a man and feel secure in light of so many people talking and writing, yes, about toxic masculinity. I can only imagine how important a woman reflecting a man's masculinity to him is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well put.
yeah. Um, I will say that it's great. The stories of the men who are perpetrators are hideous. Talking about the subject of toxic masculinity is actually very important because toxic masculinity is basically that men are raised, they're born into a world where they're not allowed to feel and safely express their emotions. And from a very young age, they are taught that big boys don't cry. You need to suck it up and be a man. Feelings are feminine. And so, especially with other men, they can't even talk to members of their own kind about what goes on.
Mhm.
Their feelings, their upsets, their disappointments. Benjamin has had the rare opportunity of having one very dear and close male friend who died at 45 years old, who was his dearest friend and who he could actually talk to.
Yeah.
And that was a rare gift for two very masculine men.
Yeah. And I have other wonderful friendships with wonderful men, but I can't fully talk to them.
Mm,
It just because I know they wouldn't be comfortable speaking about what's going on for them to me. So it doesn't feel right for it to be one way.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think toxic masculinity is really about not an excess of testosterone, but um, insecurity, pain, um, really not knowing how to be a man on this planet. And so the the very narrow pathway of toxic masculinity is a way that they could be, and also that they can that that is a path that they can discuss with their other male friends, as opposed to, I feel so insecure, or I have so much pain from growing up or from other relationships that I don't know how to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And many men just don't know how to be.
Yeah. And I want to just make one, thank you, sweetheart. I want to make one thing very clear. A lot of times when men start to open up and talk and share, and we have, or I have these kinds of conversations, sometimes women feel threatened and they say, yeah, but they have to do that for us too. And what about women? We need to, and so I really want to be clear about Benjamin has been kind enough to come here and share today vulnerably and openly from a man's perspective, so you can really hear inside of a caring, loving, articulate, heartfelt man what a man like this goes through. These are the things we're asking men to open up to us about. So this isn't about saying, well, what about women and what about us? We talk about us all the time and what we need. This is an opportunity for you to sit back and listen from your heart and really hear what men need, what kind, loving, caring, conscious men are feeling and looking for.
Right. And just as important, this talk could be of how a woman navigates intimacy.
Mhm,
Um, I mean, there are two two stories to be told,
mhm. There
and
are.
and the goal is that those two stories begin to intertwine into one story.
Yes,
That they're
absolutely.
not two separate stories. That men feel one thing, women feel another thing. That these stories begin to blend, so that men truly understand how they can be with women, what women need, and and vice versa.
Yeah. All right. So Martha said, yes, I'm almost 60. True story. Um, Let's see here. Liz says, I'm dating a man. He lets me know it's up to me to make the choice to move forward in intimacy when I'm ready. Liz, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Just wonderful. And I think that that's, I'm glad, I'm hoping, but I'm thinking that you're seeing that as a gift and not him being weak and putting the responsibility on you, but him respecting your boundaries or respecting you as a woman and giving you the space to feel comfortable. And with the right man, that's what it would be about. Anne says, Lisa, is this a topic that women dating men in their 60s
50,
and
60.
50s, 60s, or 70s should initiate early in the courting regarding sexual performance and the challenges we face as we age? Aside from the permission part, um, let me just see here. Would it be wise to raise the subject? And if so, what would be the best way to talk about it?
Ooh,
Go ahead.
ideally, the man would initiate the conversation. If you had a very aware, sensitive man, um, uh, that he would say, look, I'm in my 60s and I'm not in my 20s. And, and sometimes when I really, really like someone, it makes it even harder the first time or two. Um, and I just want you to understand that. And for a woman to say, absolutely. You know, there's no hurry. We can take it in, stages. And also for a woman to express where she is sexually in her 50s, 60s, and 70s. If a woman begins to say, look, I still have a libido, but it's not the same as when I was younger. And so, I really love intimacy, whatever form it takes. And I'd love to see how it progresses. And there's no hurry, there's no right way. Um, and it doesn't have to be or look like a certain way.
Yeah. And that's genuine emotional nakedness. So that's what I teach, is being able to have these beautiful, intimate conversations about real things that are happening in relationships, not bringing fantasies and Disney movie ideas into a relationship, but being adults and really being human and having those intimate conversations. Benjamin did that on our fifth date. And it wasn't, I don't think it was a sexual conversation, but it was some other very intimate things about his life that he wanted me to know before we got more deeply involved. And I look back on that conversation and how adult it was, how mature, how thoughtful, how vulnerable it was, but how
Also, how caring. Yeah.
caring. But you were so amazing. I mean, it it gave me more respect for you. And I was like, wow, I'm with a man, an adult, a grown up, somebody I can trust to care about me, to communicate important things to me. It was really beautiful. And I look back on that, and yeah, it was phenomenal. So these are the deep, intimate conversations, especially about sex and sexual needs and where you are in your timeline of life.
And shame can turn into vulnerability, and vulnerability can transform into intimacy.
Oh,
So, you know, it it can be healing for both individuals and absolutely healing for the relationship.
what was that? I think we should say that again because shame can turn into vulnerability.
And vulnerability can transform into intimacy, not only for the individuals, but for the relationship.
Whoa. Okay. That's the kind of stuff I wanted you all to hear. That's why I wanted this man to do these Facebook Lives with me, is because of what you just said right there. It's beautiful. Beautiful. And I want to say, this is what you're reaching for, most of you. This is what many of you are looking for, is this kind of deep, honest, emotionally naked, real connection with a partner. If you're pushing too hard to get somebody to grow up, right? To do one of the things I realized, when I was dating, was that I shouldn't have, not only did I not want to, I got to a point where I realized I shouldn't have to teach a grown up man how to be a man with me. I shouldn't have to tell him those things. A man who had sorted those things out would just do those things. They'd already know.
Yeah. And there has to be room and space for a man to be a man in a
Mhm.
relationship.
Yeah,
In other words, please,
a woman has to be receptive.
has to be receptive. And so often in relationships, the the roles get reversed. And sometimes the women can be more masculine and the men can become more feminized. So ideally, there's room in space in a relationship for a man to be a man.
Mm.
And it's not blaming the woman because it's the man that gives it up. It's the man's choice. But um, that co-creation in a relationship of of maintaining the space for masculinity, just as a man co-creates with the woman the space for her to be feminine.
Al- Creating that space, if I could add to that, to be able to create that space, it requires that we don't just do the things we want to do or that we think we should do, but that we're willing to do the things that our partner needs us to do to create that. And so a lot of times we get in women, as women, we get into this idea that he should just accept me the way I am. And, I'm so wonderful and all. For me, one of the things that I found was an eye opener was that I needed to understand what a man would need from me and then provide those things for him, whatever they are. If you're my partner, and for example, one of your values is having a woman cook for you, right? And that's something that makes you feel like a man. And I'm not saying that people have to have traditional roles. I'm saying if I'm with a man and that's a value to him, that I would be willing to do those things because it would make you feel like a man. I would do the things. And I don't, if it feels like subjugating yourself, then that's not your man. You go find someone else. But if I love you, right? Just like um, when we met, I wasn't very good with silence. I didn't know how to be silent and hold space for you, right? But I learned how to be better at it
Yeah.
over time
Oh,
because I
yeah.
love you. And I didn't take it personally or feel like you were shutting me out or shutting me up or not wanting, I talk too much. I respected your need for silence and I created that with you. Yeah. But this is all how we love each other and we create a safe space for us to be able to be sexual. It all feeds back everything we're talking about.
And we may use the term sexual, but it's really about intimacy.
Yeah.
And intimacy can show up 10,000 ways in a relationship.
And the topic of this conversation is about sexual intimacy
Yeah.
and creating that safety and that connection with your partner.
Yeah. And as we experience the intimacy 10,000 different ways in a relationship, it lets us have that trust and safety um, with sexual intimacy.
Yeah. No, it's just amazing. It's amazing. And back to the beginning, how fragile that connection is. How fragile and precious the ability for a man and a woman to feel safe, making love over and over and over again in a relationship over decades and years, and to still have that beautiful, safe, open, intimate connection sexually. Fun. Yeah, fun. Fun. Yeah, that we can keep that alive and that everything that we're doing, who we're being, how we're being with each other in every moment keeps feeding into that ability for both of us to have that beautiful sexual intimacy. It's never, ever, ever faded for us. I think once when I was putting on some weight, I was going through menopause. And there was that period where I was dieting. I was trying to, I wanted to lose weight, but I couldn't. That was the one time I questioned if my attractiveness, my physical attractiveness to you.
Yeah, but I never questioned it.
No,
No.
no, no. You never questioned it, but I started, I felt that. And so, and part of what I'll share with everybody is I was feeling so bad. I was feeling badly, and it was causing me, my inability to take control of that was causing me to pull away sexually from you. You wouldn't have known, like I was always available and all, but it was causing me to pull back. And that's why I dealt with it, because not because I did it for myself. I actually saw it affecting our connection. and causing me to pull back. And so, because of that, I said, you have to deal with this. You've got to face this. And so that's when I started going to the gym, and all was because of that. That was the thing. It was affecting us. Yeah. So I think we're at time. I think it's time. There were a few more comments and questions. So I'm going to look at those really quickly before we go. Um, so Minerva said, I like to believe these types of conversations will open the door and make it easier for men to be able to express these things freely and safely. Thank you, Minerva. Thank you. You know, one thing I do see in addressing what you said, Minerva, is that there are a lot more ads on radio and stuff for male, like for Viagra and for companies where men can get Viagra or help, sexual help. They're even on the radio, so it is becoming more prevalent.
Mhm.
Something's shifting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're actually saying this is safe. You don't have to worry. It's completely confidential. And so men are addressing this male need for a safe way to be able to get help. There are many men who are, completely shut down in this area, and they won't seek medical attention. They're afraid to go to doctors. It's so shameful that they won't even get help. And actually, relationships break up all the time over a man's inability to do that. So it's good to see that there's some awareness and some public discussion about
Right.
it. Right?
Right.
Do you hear that, honey?
Oh, I think it's been in cultures, more so in other cultures, like in Japan. I think that men would, it was almost like superstition, would eat certain foods or for potency, um, and you know it's it's been the holy grail,
Mhm.
for men, for ages.
But it's the subject of ED that
Right,
hasn't been talked
right,
about. And so
right.
what they're doing is they're putting out ads that address, hey, this can help with your ED. There are men who won't even go and try Viagra, even knowing it's just a medical prescription. They're so afraid to admit that they're having any sexual dysfunction, right? Natalie says, what if the roles are reversed and the woman's libido has gone down and his is still extremely high?
I think every relationship is going to be different, but I think that even when a libido goes down, as ours have gone down, that just making ourselves available, we begin to enjoy the act itself, even though we're not um, thinking about it, or thinking about doing it, for days or hours before.
Mhm.
Uh, but just um, being available really creates a wonderful, intimate moment.
Yeah. And Natalie, one thing to remember, one thing that is really important that doesn't always get talked about is that many people, many women in particular, but many men too, we are not, you don't feel sexually aroused until you're in bed touching each other. So a lot of people aren't just feeling horny and like, oh gosh, I want to have sex and whatever. Many people and a lot of us, just until we're being touched and until we're actually being stimulated, we just aren't aroused. But that doesn't mean that you cannot get there. It doesn't mean that at all. It means, you may have to say, like Benjamin will sometimes say, hey, I'll meet you in the bedroom in half an hour. And we'll go, and I just get myself, I finish up whatever I'm doing and I prepare myself, but we make time to be in the bedroom together. Um, let's see here. Debbie said, could you both post what Benjamin said on the website? It's so beautiful.
Sweet.
I can, Debbie. I can. Will you remind me,
Sure.
honey? Okay. Cynthia, it's our pleasure to share this with you. Um, Sharon said that was the beauty of your course, understanding what a man wants. And Sharon, it had a profound effect for you. It brought a man back into your life who is the guardian of your soul. So yeah, thank you. Lisa said, Lisa, I have a beautiful open communication with my guy, and it's due to completing your course that I became the woman to create this. Lisa Cohen, I'm getting shivers, girl. I am so proud of you and happy for you. Minerva said, I love doting on a man. I just need to have one to do it. Oh, Minerva, let's find you a guy. All right. Lisa says, when you created that space for silence for Benjamin, was that something he asked of you directly, or was it something you picked up on? Oh, I'll tell you. This is a very, very great story, Lisa Schneiderman. Thank you for asking. So one day, Benjamin looked at me and he said, would you be willing to go and see my therapist with me? There's something I'm working on in therapy that you could really help me with. He didn't say, I have a problem with you, or, there's something that I would love for you to look at with me and my therapist. No, he said, I have something I'm working on. Could you help me? Could you come? And so I went. And what Benjamin shared with me was that he, sometimes he has a need for silence. And when he's feeling um, attenuated, right? When you're attenuated and you really need caring, the best thing I could do for you.
And not only just attenuated, but sometimes it's waiting for the day to catch up with me or for me to catch up with the day. That seeing 8, 9 clients a day, maybe for 10 hours straight without a break, really, and hearing stories and emotions, um, and hearing about pain and people's personal lives that I don't really have time to process it in real time. And so sometimes it's that silence that lets the day catch up with me and lets me catch up with the day.
Yeah. And so his therapist basically said, if you could be quiet and just lie down in bed and hold him in silence, that's really what he needs. I think Robert was way more artful than that, but that's literally what it came down to was, could you just shut up for a little bit and, maybe even just hold him or lay in bed and what. Yeah, they handled it beautifully. I'm making a.
Yeah, that I don't have to be silent in isolation.
Yes. And so he took me to his therapist, if in answer to your question, to let me know that that's really what he needs most. Shanice said, my weight plays a major part in my dating life. It affects my confidence, and I feel like I really shouldn't be trying to date until I'm more confident with my weight. Shanice, it could take forever. It can take, and I don't know, but dealing with your weight, um, is really a big issue, and it could prevent you forever from actually dating or finding a guy. And maybe you find a guy and the two of you start working out together, and who knows, maybe there's certainly men who will find you absolutely gorgeous the way you are. And you don't want to put this on hold because you're trying to fix something in your life. You got to get out there and date. There is a wonderful book called Atomic Habits by, I think it's Brian Clear. Is that his name? But Atomic Habits, and it's about how to create new habits in your life. It's kind of the seminal book on all of this. Go read it, because making changing habits like eating or whatever, you really need to start to look at how to break that bad habit. So that's would be my recommendation.
And you had that quote about no matter how someone's butt look, there's always going to be someone.
Yeah, that's not my quote, but there was a woman who did a workshop and there was a panel of men. And one of the guys on the panel said, look, you all need to get over this. He said, if you've got a butt, there's somebody digging on your butt. and you just better deal with it. And, so there are men, Shanice, digging on your butt. And, I'm not telling you that you have to like love your body if you don't love your body. But, um, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put your dating life on hold. I had a woman, a client who I loved this woman. She was amazing. And she was a large size woman. She was probably what a 20, she probably weighed well over 300 pounds. And she never once used her weight as an excuse for dating and she attracted some great guys. And man, did she wind up with a wonderful man. We were at her wedding a few years ago in Los Angeles. And she was a big success in her work life. And I got to tell you, she's a success in her love life. This woman was awesome. So don't let that stop you. Um, okay. They don't touch on intimacy like you do. Well, thank you. Thanks, Minerva. Um, Lisa has a way to address CD naturally. Um, um, oh, you're welcome, Natalie. It's our pleasure, honey. Okay. So I'm just looking at some of the comments here. Um, let's see here. I'm in the same boat as Benjamin. My job requires me being empathetic and listening to and caring for other people, so much so that I really crave peace and silence for my own mental health. Well, Shanice, that's going to make you even more appealing to some great guys. They are going to love that about you. Bonnie says it is hard for men to be is it hard for men to be only friends without having a commitment with a woman because of his sexual desires?
I think for a lot of men, it's a lot easier for them to have female friends than to have male friends. They could be more open, more soft, more playful than they can be with men. So, absolutely.
Yeah, they can. There you go. All right, everybody. We're going to go enjoy the rest of our Sunday. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And this is Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. Please come back and see us again. We're going to do these every Sunday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. That would be noon Eastern Time. I got that right. And it is our pleasure and our joy to be able to share these intimate talks with you. Have a wonderful Sunday. Please tell your friends, both male and female. I really do believe that there are men who would gain so much by hearing Benjamin open up and share, and to see such a lovely masculine man who's willing and able to articulate his feelings. And he's really the role model that I think a lot of men are looking for. So please tell your male friends too. Natalie, it's great to see you here. Minerva, Janice, everybody, all of you. Mwah. Please give us some thumbs up, some hearts. We love to see the approval. It feeds our egos, which we need to feed. It lets us know that we're doing a good job. Also, you all can write to me, Lisa Shield, Lisa at lisashield.com. Excuse me, Lisa at lisashield.com. Please send me suggestions if there are topics that you want us to talk about. Our best ideas come from all of you. So just drop me a quick email and say, Lisa, can you and Benjamin talk about this? And we will do a whole hour conversation on whatever topic you pick. Love to you all. Yes, Maria. Maria, hello, hello. It is wonderful. We would love to meet up with you, Maria. Oh my gosh. I had forgotten that you're here, honey. Please just drop me an email and let me know how to get in touch with you. Okay. My love to everybody. Please stay safe. Ladies, open up your hearts to men. Have compassion for the good ones. You may have to give them, you may have to initiate sexually. You may have to let him know that it's safe, that you're safe. It doesn't mean you'll initiate forever with the right guy. Once you open that door, he'll walk through it. So just know that men are sensitive, that they need some help from us right now. The good ones are afraid of having, making a slipping up, making a misstep and having it really cost them dearly when it comes to sex. So be sure to make it safe for them. Let them know that, yes, you are safe and that you're open. And men will do that for you too. They will. All right, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.